G'day everyone, welcome back to Nadlin Forum Podcast Daily. I'm Ruby Sturt, as always, hanging out with the legend Lior, and today we are getting into the nitty-gritty of refinance appraisals. Now, before you switch off thinking, that sounds a bit dry, mate, trust me, this stuff can really make or break your refi.
And hi from New York, this is Lior. You know, people ask me all the time, why does an appraisal even matter for my refinance? I already own the place, but that's actually kind of the whole point. With a refinance, the lender still wants that fresh look at your home's value, so they know they're not lending you more than it's worth. It protects them, but honestly, it's safeguarding you too. You don't want to end up underwater on your mortgage if prices shift, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the big thing people forget is that a refinance appraisal isn't quite like a purchase appraisal. When you're buying a house, the appraiser sort of has that sale price in front of them, like there's an expectation. But with refis, it's just, what's this place worth today? No hints, just pure property assessment in the current market, with whatever improvements you've done and whatever's going on locally.
Right. The lender orders that valuation using a random independent appraiser. So it's not your friend or your real estate agent giving it a thumbs up. And you know, these guys are professionals. They look at the condition, recent sales nearby, local market vibes, all of it. The report? It literally decides if your new loan gets approved and what the terms look like.
Oh, speaking of that, my mate Jess, she did a big kitchen reno, seriously fancy gear, right? Marble, the works. So she's thinking, easy money, this'll push the appraised value way up. But the appraiser barely blinked at the new bench tops. Honestly, he cared more about the new plumbing and whether the heating system worked. Jess was like totally gobsmacked.
That's classic. I always tell people not all upgrades are equal for the appraisal. They look at the bones, the systems, structure, overall maintenance. I mean, a shiny new kitchen is great, but if your roof leaks or the HVAC is shot, that's weighing down your value way more than those countertops. By the way, Ruby, we kind of touched on this in last week's episode about regional price slowdowns. It all ties together, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. You nailed it, Lior. So if you're thinking about refinancing, understanding how that appraisal plays out, massive. Don't get caught up only in what looks nice for Instagram. All right, so let's break down what really impacts that value if you want to prep smart for your next appraisal. So first off, your local market matters a lot. Like if demand's red hot and there's no homes for sale in your area, chances are you'll get a bit of a bump on value. But if it's like heaps of inventory and not many buyers, that could pull your appraisal down even if your place is in top shape.
And then it's those comparable sales, or comps as appraisers say. They'll zero in on homes really similar to yours that sold recently, ideally within the past 3 to 6 months. If your neighbor sold high, that helps you, unless their place had an extra bedroom or something major and yours doesn't. You want to have those details ready, like, hey, my house was upgraded last year. That sale across the street, no upgrades. Sometimes pointing that out matters.
And the stuff you actually can control before the appraisal. Think curb appeal, but not just slapping a wreath on the door, like mow the lawn, fix loose handles, declutter inside, and if the appraiser can see every surface, much better. It's like, you want them to see well maintained, not we moved in last night and haven't unpacked.
Yeah. And systems, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, if something's not working, get it sorted. It sounds minor, but if an appraiser hears rattling, sees dripping faucets, or notices old wiring, that can drop your value quick. Marble isn't going to save you if the heating's dead. There was a case, I'll keep it brief, but an investor buddy in Brooklyn had a refi coming and knew it was a drive-by. not a full inspection. Even then, he made sure the outside looked spotless, landscaping on point. It worked. The assigned value came in way stronger than he'd expected.
Yeah, that stuff really does matter. Sometimes people think, oh, exterior, whatever, they're not coming inside. Nope, first impressions stick. And even for inside appraisals, things like cleaning, tidying, even swapping out burned bulbs, it all quietly nudges the number up. By the way, keep records of your upgrades. Appraisers are busy, but if you can hand them a list, photos, and receipts, you're making their job easier and possibly boosting your value.
Absolutely. And in New York especially, with values all over the place, these little prep steps aren't just nice extras. They can shift the outcome. Sometimes the difference between approved and not approved, or the interest rate you get, is just a couple of grand on the appraisal. So it really pays to be strategic.
Right, and honestly, it's not about faking anything, just presenting your house in its best light. Think of it as like home tidying, but with thousands of dollars on the line. Okay, but even with all that, sometimes appraisals don't go your way. Let's talk about what you can actually do if things come back a bit lower than you hoped. All right, let's be real. Even if you do all the right things, sometimes the appraisal just doesn't match what you or your lender were expecting, yeah? So what now? First, double check that report. Appraisers can make mistakes, or they might miss a recent sale, or even forget that new HVAC you installed last winter. You can challenge the value, provide more info, and ask for a reconsideration.
Exactly. And if you really think it's off, or you spot a clear error, you can order a second appraisal. It costs extra, so pick your battles. But sometimes it's worth it, especially if the first one flat out missed the mark. Now, if none of that works and the value stays low, you may need to adjust your approach, like bringing extra funds to close if needed or just waiting it out until values improve.
There's also a whole world out there where you might be able to skip the appraisal altogether. Some government-backed loans, like FHA Streamline, VA ERRL, or USDA Streamline Refi, these can let you refinance with little or no appraisal. You usually got to be current on payments, and every program has its own quirks. But honestly, it can be a game changer, especially for folks who bought when the market was wild and their current value is a bit, unpredictable.
Totally right. I had a client, let's call him David, did an FHA Streamline. Home values were kind of iffy in his suburb at the time, so a no appraisal option let him grab the lower rate he needed without stressing over comps or repairs. The requirements aren't hard, but you need to be on time with payments, and the existing loan has to be FHA or another program-supported type.
We've seen it help loads of clients with VA loans too, especially retirees who want to trim their payment but really don't want the hassle or risk of a brand new appraisal coming in shaky. It can really smooth out the whole process and sometimes just make the difference between being able to refinance or not.
Look, whether you're challenging a low value, prepping like mad, or exploring those government-backed options, the key is knowing what fits your situation and not letting a rough appraisal close every door. Stay informed, like we always say, and play smart.
And we're here every step of the way, right, Lior? That's it for today's episode of Nadlin Forum Podcast Daily. Next time, we'll dig into some more strategies for managing your mortgage and staying ahead in these wild markets. Thanks for joining, and Lior, always a pleasure having these chats with you.
Always a pleasure, Ruby. And thanks to everyone for listening. Stay tuned, keep those questions coming, and we'll catch you next time. Bye for now.